Cool. Okay, so that's the recorded meeting number 48, I believe. So on my end, in the past month, as I said last time, I spent a lot of time figuring out HiveMind and doing some onboarding for Bluemix. I did do some back and forth with Bartek on my recurrent transfer pull requests. Um, and I spent the better part of last week trying to get basically an overload the on the recurrent transfer in the CLI wallet. I don't think it's possible, so I may need to add a. Either we keep the status quo like this, meaning we add the pair ID at the end, or we create a new one, a new command which is like recurrent transfer pair ID. The reason why we don't want to keep the current status quo is that it means that we update a bunch of the existing tests, which is the way it's currently done, but Bartek doesn't like it too much, which I get. Apart from that, so we spent a bunch of time with BlueMeX to on HiveMind and Half. I think at this point I got everything related to restoring a database correctly. There was a ton of issues where when you restore a Hive database with HiveMind, it basically does not restore HiveMind, or half is not restored, and you basically need to like enable and disable the indexes a bunch of times while you restore. And I ended up mapping all of the state transitions so that I found the correct way to restore and get the correct status every time. So yeah, apart from that, wrote a bunch of documentation, and that's about it for me.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll probably make a post with more details because obviously a lot's gone on since last meeting. But just some highlights. We are getting ready to release a new version of Hive D and Hive and Half, and also later, probably not too long, to Half a new version of Half and as well. Um, so in the new release, I guess one of the important things, I guess, for everybody will be that we're officially supporting Ubuntu 22 now. Is this, that'll be the base supported version. So if anyone's running 18 still, God knows, or even 20, there'll be a shift to 22. One of the things we've done along the way, and I think it's all complete now, is that we've got Docker images for doing the building. Uh, they're already the correct version, and basically you can essentially, the idea is you'll be able to check out one of these Dockers and actually develop under the Docker if you want. I mean, you don't have to, but it's a convenience that you can get an environment set up that's set up for doing development. In terms of other things that are coming in the new version of Hive D, we've got some new virtual operations to basically get more information that was requested for like treasury operations and things like that. We also got code prepared for the hard fork 28. So this, in other words, it's not actually going to do hard fork 28, but we've got some of the preliminary code done for that in terms of just doing the actual fork itself. Um, and we've been working on some changes to basically detect when you upgrade, if you've got like if there's going to be a conflict between your shared memory situation or not. So this is just it's an issue sometimes people come up with. They change their plugins, and then they don't have a proper shared memory anymore because different plugins store different data inside shared memory and stuff like that. So, and the same applies to snapshots as well. So we've added some code that basically allows you to detect and report these kind of conditions, so you don't have to go through a whole replay just to find out things are messed up. We've also fixed a bunch of bugs that have been reported in Hive D over time. Some of them related to account history, and um, we're also getting prepared. Some of the changes are also memory enhancements. We're lowering memory requirements a little bit more, and part of the driver for that is also going to be to eventually make RC a consensus. It's not going to be now, but we know eventually we're probably going to make a consensus. So we're preparing for that condition. Let's see. That's the major changes in Hive D I can think of right offhand. Like I said, there's more, but I'll cover that in the post. The other changes of the other most significant changes, I guess, are in half itself. I mentioned a while back that we've been working on storing the binary operations data in, the operations data in a binary format rather than a text format. And so that's done. It's been done for a bit, but we've been testing it with various half apps like Haffa and HiveMind and things like that. And that's all looking good. So that'll be part of the official release of Half. Will be the JSON the binary storage of the operations. So that'll significantly reduce the amount of storage used by the database, the Half database, especially ones that are not filtering, that are grabbing all the operations, of course. We also have some more data that's stored in Half now. We've been developing. One of the things we've been developing is a block explorer. I think I've mentioned several times, and that's been useful in helping us figure out other information we might want to add to the Half database itself. Since this new block explorer is basically designed to be easy to run if you have a Half database already. So as part of that, so one of the changes we found was we were storing some of the dynamic global data information now into Half, because that was useful for the DAF database, and we could see how it'd be useful for other Half applications. And we also wound up storing hard fork data into the database as well, so that a Half application can see the points at which hard forks took place in the history of Half's blockchain. Other things we've been doing to Half is related to what Hao just mentioned, which is we've been working on dumping and loading Half instances. And I guess that's kind of the main things there. The other things we've been doing is a lot of testing and automated building related. We've been trying to really smooth out that process and also make it faster, because we've added a ton of tests in the past month or two. And, we didn't want our test times to keep increasing, because that means it takes longer for us to verify any changes. So we've been having to make improvements to the speed at which we were able to run our tests too, just so we could not put a undue burden on how long it takes before you can verify your code changes. So that's probably the main things. Like I said, a lot of small things, but I'll cover those later. So at that point, I guess I'll probably usually I hand over to Imlatsi next. So I guess let's keep with tradition, and I'll switch to him.
Thanks. So I pushed out a bunch of updates for GNS, which is the notification system that's based on Half. I added support for user preferences. There's 7 new notification types now available. I also added Keychain login for the preview site, so you can log in with Keychain and see the notifications that are available in your account. And I made a bunch of performance improvements there as well. I've also been working on the DAO dashboard. I made a post about it earlier on. Now I'm doing final tests. I think we should be ready to release that this week, as well as Free Space, which is the dApp that's part of the Freebeings DAO that we're working on. Development is going well there as well. I also released the white paper for the token protocol I mentioned a while back. It's on GitHub. I also shared the link on MetroMost. If you could give that a look and give some feedback when you get the time, that would be helpful. Yeah, that's pretty much the update from my side.
All right. Anyone else?
I have just one question for Blocktrace. As you mentioned, changes in HiveD, HiveMind. What will be the impact of those changes for API nodes operators?
There's some on the Half side. There's some fairly minor changes. Let me see if I can pull up details here again. So there's a transaction counter in the RocksDB plugin, and it didn't count, I think, some transactions. So that transaction counter got improved. And if I think apparently it says we fixed impacted account collection for comment payout beneficiaries. So I think basically we found that this operation wasn't being collected by the account history, and I guess it was by half. So we noticed it, when we were doing comparisons between the two. I think that's what happened, if I understood things correctly. Bartek,
So will we have to replay with HiveD and to resync with HiveMind?
yeah, I mean, I think to get the correct account, there definitely need to be a replay. That's for sure.
Yes, exactly. To get correct account history, you should perform full replay of HiveD if you are still using old account history RocksDB plugin, or perform full half replay if you would like to use half and half. And fixes related to account history mostly are related to very specific test cases when specific blocks are queried. And actually, right now, it happens very rare because OBI makes blocks actually immediately irreversible. So there is no big chance that some problems will appear. Also, set of accounts impacted by common payout beneficiaries probably is not so. But of course, better to have full history. If we found this very old bug, it was already fixed. As for other compatibility, potential compatibility issues to have applications and have which could be caused by switching to binary operation format. One thing which we identified to progressing from HAFAC to HiveMind, HiveBlock Explorer in balanced tracker operations, was at most adding some cast from operation body column to JSON or JSON-B type. And usually it was very simple and easy things to do if any possible changes was needed. Sometimes no changes was needed because we tried to make everything compatible as previously.
Okay, and do you have any estimation when it will be rolled out?
Sorry, could you repeat?
He's asking
Do you have any
when the date for the release will be. I mean,
approximately, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't need a date.
So we're probably talking. I'd guess. I mean, I would say next week is my guess, because this week we could probably release some of it earlier, but we also still got to make changes to HAFA and HiveMind, to verify those. So I don't think I think it's probably best to release them all at once, is my feeling. I don't know what Bartek thinks, but I haven't talked to him about this. But so I think my feeling is it should be next week at the earliest, and he may want to do it later. So I'll ask him what he thinks too.
Well, I think next week is, I don't want to say very sure, because it can make us some strange things to happen, but everything should work correctly, because we have tested it already. All what I'm doing right now is collecting all changes to write these notes and preparing merges to. So hopefully, as Dan said, it can be next week, maybe even earlier. We'll see.
Okay, and has it been tested in production?
Yes, it was tested on production, and it worked fine. As I remember, over a week without problems. Worked at HiveMind and HAFAC on single server, and handled whole production HiveBlock site.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
All right. So yeah, moving on to the few topics I had. I didn't have much apart from well, the CLI wallet thing. So Bartek, you wanted to try the overloading the. I don't know if you remember on the recurrent transfer. You wanted to try overloading the CLI wallet definition, but turns out that does not work. So would you rather that I add a new CLI wallet command for recurrent transfer, including the pair ID, or would you rather keeping it like this, where we update the old tests?
Okay, and did you update test tools also? Because probably discussion started there, if I don't remember.
Yeah, pretty much. So test tools
Okay.
have been updated, but basically the overload does not work well when there is a generation of the documentation in the CLI wallets.
Mhm. Okay, so maybe best solution will be to create some slightly differently named method for
Yeah,
new recurrent transfer, and this way solve the issue.
yeah, that's what I thought as well.
Okay.
Cool. So I'll change that this afternoon, and I'll push that for review. I also still haven't fixed the issue where the CI runs for a very long time. I don't know why that is, but we can report on that offline. And I think.
So I have a question about that. Is it just your branch is doing it?
Yeah, I don't know
Okay.
why. Yeah, it's very odd. The issue is that I cannot reproduce it locally, and
So it's just when it's run on the automated system.
yeah. Initially, I thought
Huh.
it was depending on the build system, because I know there's different builders going around. But even when like the most beefy ones who run with 64 cores, they still get 48 cores. They still get locked on that. And yeah, basically the timeout is 15 minutes when develop runs in 10 minutes. So there's an extra 5 minutes that I don't quite know where they are getting spent.
What's going on? Okay. Oh, okay.
Well, I think best is to try run such tests locally and see what happens there. If you would like to have prepared environment for building and testing Hive applications, we have prepared some Docker image containing whole setup inside. You can check builder image repository
Cool. Okay.
or GitLab. And after building given image, you will get exact environment as this one used at CI process, because CI-based image is used as base of this image. And this way, you will have the same environment as the one used in executing CI process. Maybe you have introduced some slowdown in the process, and that's why CI process timeouts every time. So are observing sometimes job timeouts, but usually there are few jobs working on the edge and having timeout near to 30 minutes, and for example, working correctly after in 25 minutes, and when runner is loaded, the time can be of course increased and exceeded given limits. Are at home, such things are stable, and we didn't identify any problems leading random behavior of that. So the reason must be somehow related to your code, and best will be to identify why and what it is.
Yeah, pretty much. My current logic is I'm basically disabling more and more of my code as and run the CI to see to find the actual place where all that time is
You
being
are
spent.
you are talking, of course, on recurrent transfer implementation.
Yeah, which is
Yeah.
strange because the only thing I can think of is basically maybe the added index, but
Yes, but maybe looking for some recurrent transfers is slower right now.
yeah.
I don't know, didn't look lately scope, so we need to refresh.
Yeah. Okay.
Just to follow up also on the builder image stuff he's talking about, there is actually a separate repo for
Oh,
the builder
okay.
image now. And you'll see it there. It's just called builder-image.
Very creative. Okay, thanks. That's pretty much all I've had for today for me.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions?
Hi everyone, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Well, I don't know if I missed the part with the DevSync, everyone giving an update. So I just wanted to give a little update. Working
sure.
with the. Sorry.
I said, yeah, go ahead. That's doesn't have to come at a particular time.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I'm working with the Peak team, where they have the Peak open projects, and there's like several of those projects. So there's several developers, and we're working in parallel on various projects. So I guess one little update I can give about kind of the things that I've been working on. I guess I've just completed working on something called Hive OpenStats, which is a statistical platform for Hive, open source and open and available for everyone to build it on their own or to use it however they want to. And right now, I have started working on a Hive app, basically porting the HiveMind plugin that they have developed into a Hive app. So Bartek has been helping me a little bit with answering some questions that I had there with kind of how things tie together with the whole stack. So that's been helpful. And so I guess this is just kind of like a start, a small taste of how to develop a Hive app. And so we'll see how we'll go from there. But so far, so good.
Great. Sounds good.
Yeah, sounds good. If you have questions, you can also reach out to me. I'll gladly lend a hand on Hive-related matters.
Sure. Thanks.
Also, as developing Hive applications, I'd like just to mention that we have added some boilerplate code for Docker Compose statements, which can simplify setup of Hive applications and Hive instance itself. It's maybe very early stage of such definitions, but we tried to define them to allow multi-stage usage and very easy and backend and application part, like also environment-based deployments to make things easy and stable. So I think if someone is trying scratch, it's worth to try looking at that and initial setup of Docker Compose, since it is very useful.
That sounds interesting. Are you developing that in any particular repository?
This example compose files are located in HAF repository, probably under some examples directory. So please find it definitely.
And just to clarify, we're talking about the develop branch, not the production branch. It's
Yes. Under develop branch, but of course, after making soon, it will also appear under master.
Okay, I'll check it out.
actually, in general, I'd recommend that if anybody's doing development in HAF, I think it makes sense to work in the develop branch. If you're developing a HAF app, maybe some people will disagree with me, but it's such that, I mean, obviously we're going to soon most of the development into release, but release, my view is a release of HAF is for production apps that are, being used by people. But when you're developing an app, I think it probably makes sense to use the develop branch for your own app. I think that's frequently going to make you most prepared for the future. Your apps most prepared for the future of HAF, and it also gives more feedback to us too. So I think it's helpful for both sides.
Agreed.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Well, I guess that's it then. Thank you very much, and see you next month. Or
Thanks,
sooner
guys.
for the release.
See you.